This is your recording for Dirk the Protector and My Superpowers quiz. Number 1. The description that Gary reveals about himself in paragraphs 1 through 3 shows that he was motivated to have the best clothes and shoes, that he was disappointed about not having the best clothes and shoes, that he was a hard worker and a survivor, that he worked a lot and didn't care much about his education. Number 2. Gary lives in a small town. How does this influence the plot of the story? Gary is able to find work easily. Gary is unable to escape running into Happy and his cohorts. Gary leaves work at late hours, or Gary has to go to school with Happy. The setting of the streets late at night affects the plot because it was a prime time for groups of boys to be out on the streets looking for trouble, and there was no one around to defend Gary. It causes Dirk to come out and protect Gary. Everything is closed at night. Gary can easily hide from his tormentors in a dark alley. Gary's reaction of punching Happy is important because it shows that Gary is a tough kid, Gary's courage and will to survive, that Gary feels responsible for Dirk, that Gary knows how to fight back. Read the following lines from the story. Dirk took him in the middle, bit him in the stomach hard. Before Happy's fist could get to me, it was absolutely great. Maybe one of the great moments in my life. What did these lines reveal about Gary? That he would never be bullied again, that Dirk was a protective dog, that Gary was happy to have a friend, that Happy was scared of Dirk. Number 6. A characteristic of Dirk's that affects the plot most is his anger, loyalty, sympathy, or pride. Number 7. Which best describes an example of internal conflict in the story? Dirk watches the flock of sheep. Dirk bites Happy in the stomach before he's able to punch Gary. Gary feels hopeless about getting help because he's from the wrong side of the tracks. Drinking in Gary's home causes difficulties with his parents. Number 8. What is the best summary of Dirk the Protector? Gary Paulson wished to live alone in a basement. He met a poor old dog named Dirk who befriended him at a bowling alley one night. Dirk saved Gary from a group of bullies and enjoyed his new life eating Ritz crackers and peanut butter while being a loyal protector of Gary. Gary Paulson lives in the basement of an old building and has to work undesirable jobs at a bowling alley. He is often beat up by Happy and his gang at night on his way home from work. One night, Dirk the dog comes and scares away the bullies, and eventually follows Gary around every day. The dog keeps the bullies away, and Gary appreciates him in the end. Gary Paulson had a very difficult childhood. He lived in a basement and worked multiple jobs to survive the challenges of living independently. He faced bullies day after day until Dirk became an important part of his life, his best friend. Gary Paulson wrote a story about his life living in a small town. He was regularly tormented and decided to buy a dog with the money he earned from the bowling alley. The dog scared away Happy and his gang and eventually went with Gary everywhere in the end. Gary moved out to the country with Dirk, and they worked together protecting the sheep. Number 9. What message or core lesson does the author want to convey to the reader in the Dirk the Protector? Working hard is the key to success. People living in poverty cannot depend on others. Companionship is an important part of human nature. Don't work late at night. In My Superpowers, which is the best describes the narrator's internal conflict in the story? The narrator is upset with Anne for laughing at him when he was bullied. The narrator's cub cap is taken off his head by Vernon and his buddies. The narrator feels embarrassed in front of his crush when the bullies take his cap. Or the narrator has to walk home from school in extremely cold temperatures. My Superpowers. In paragraphs 10 through 13, why does the author include information about becoming a writer? The author wants to brag that he has become a famous writer who can create entire worlds and fill them with people that he wanted to put there. He makes a connection between life as an adult to his childhood to reflect and show what he learned from this moment in his life. He was hoping that Vernon Manteuffel would read these last 4 paragraphs of his story. He wanted everyone to know what a powerful person he has become as an adult. My Superpowers. How does the setting of a cold winter day in Chicago influence the plot of the story? The fact that the narrator had to wear a coat and hat influences the plot since his hat was taken from his head by the bullies. The narrator does not like cold weather. The narrator lost his cap when a cold gust of wind breezed through on his way home from school. The narrator always wanted to live in Chicago because he enjoyed the snow. Number 13, my superpowers. What is the most important idea that the author learned from this experience? He learned that talking to girls is very difficult to do. His superpowers came from within himself, and he had the powers to stand up for himself all along. Success is the best revenge. Vernon Manteuffel wasn't as cool as he thought he was. Number 14, my superpowers. The author's interaction with Anne Cohn in the story contributed to the plot because when he cried in front of her, he became so humiliated that he finally snapped and attacked Vernon. He could finally brag that he kissed a girl who wasn't related to him. He ended up feeling so powerful with his newly acquired superpowers that he married Anne in their adulthood. She helped defend him against Vernon. Number 15, my superpowers. If the story were told from Vernon's Manteufel's point of view, how would the story be different? Vernon would have been the one to defeat the narrator with his own superpowers. We would have known that he too liked Anne Cohn and was trying to impress her by picking on the narrator. We would know the reason why he started bullying the narrator, or we would know that he did in fact watch the Zack Files when he was an adult and saw that he was turned into a character. All right, good luck. When you're finished, click submit and then go back to the Google Classroom and mark as done. Good luck, guys.